Hello everyone, it's Richard. Today we're going to be talking about something different. I'm going to be talking about Catholicism, but instead of talking about their beliefs, I'm going to be covering how they affected history and certain groups. I'll make a video later about their beliefs and their foundations. To give you a general gist about what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start off with Christianity in Rome, then move to the heathens or Germanic people, then I'll finish off with the Celts. To start off, we have Rome. If you ask any Christian about Rome, most of them will tell you a story about how they were hunted down and fed to lions. Now, I'm not calling them liars or anything, but they are incorrect about some of their details. The Christian cult, and it was a cult at the time, was viewed with suspicion because people didn't understand their rituals that they practiced. Due to the ever-expanding habit of the Roman Empire, they were constantly absorbing different peoples with different religions, and Christianity was viewed as one of those new religions that it's absorbed. And not all of the new religions that they did absorb were beneficial. There were some that were harmful to them. The common people knew this, and they were afraid of Christianity would be the same. So if you can combine the fear and suspicion of the people and the general people that Christians were at the time, which were normally the poor slaves or soldiers, and that's not really a good group of people that are high standing in society. So when you combine those two things, you have the perfect scapegoat, and that's what they're normally used for. And in 64 AD, Emperor Nero used the Christians to explain the Great Fire, blaming them to ease the mind of the people. This caused fear and was one of the big situations that started their persecution. So during this time of persecution, the Christians were not normally hunted down ruthlessly. It was more of something they were killed, they were caught. So, there wasn't really a lot of pressure put towards it. It was more if it was convenient. And if they were ever heavily persecuted, it was only after times that they were recently blamed for something important, like the Great Fire. So when the Christians were caught, they were normally crucified, used a human's torch, or thrown into beast fights. So although the beast fights were mostly used for convenience. They just threw a group of Christians in there. It was very commonplace to put them as human torches instead. You may be thinking, I know about Christianity and how they're hunted, and you're probably wondering, how did Christianity become an official religion in Rome? Well, let me tell you. In 1312 AD, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity. This event is what most historians recognize as what allowed Christianity to become a recognized religion in Rome. So, in the following years after he converted, there was more laws put in place recognizing it and allowing it, solidifying its understanding and place in Rome. So although it was accepted in Rome, it was slow going. It wasn't really expanding as rapidly as it would later. And paganism was still a large part of Roman culture up until the fall of the Roman Empire, which brings us to the heathens, or Germanic people. So the Germanic people, they kind of conquered Rome, per se, and this is what really started it. So I don't really know a lot about this topic in general. The Germanic people doesn't really pique my interest, so I'm going to go kind of straightforward through this part. So it started with the conquering of Rome, pretty much. That's when the largest influence of Germanic people, that was the largest ability for the Christians to have an influence on Germanic people. So when they started converting the Germanic people, they would go for the leaders. And the leaders of the Germanic people wanted to be like Romans because they knew that would bring them into a new level of culture, basically. It would bring them up a level on the social evolutionary scale. That's what they wanted for their people, to be wealthy, intelligent, like the Romans. So the Germanic chiefs wanted to be like Roman, and at this time, a lot of Romans were Christians. So it was very commonplace for the Germanic chiefs to convert to Christianity so they could be like the Romans. So, when a Germanic chief would convert, it was very common for a mass conversion of all the people that he was chieftain of, because people wanted to be like their leader. So this is also common for the Christians saw this, and they went out into the other lands that were controlled by the Germanic people and followed a sort of systematical pattern of converting leaders of their communities to get a larger crowd, basically. And that's overall how they converted the Germanic people. There were some setbacks here and there when large leaders, when large groups of Germanic people that were still primarily pagan would take over and be the primary leader. That was a general setback. But those were not overly common, and they eventually, after a few generations of that leadership, would also fall to Christianity. So now as for my favorite group of people, the Celts. So when Christianity came to the Celts, they followed a similar pattern that they used with the Germanic people. Although the Celts were not trying to be like Romans, so the Christians had to do a little more work. But because of the similarities between Christianity and the Celtic beliefs, it was not difficult for Christian priests and Christian leaders to get into the Celtic society. So there was, even in the time of Romans, there's records of Christian priests in the Celtic land. Even as far as the British Isles, they have found evidence. And this is around 314, I mean. So that was only a little after Constantine's conversion. So they only recently had power in Rome. So it's pretty surprising that they actually had influence that far out. So once the Celtic people were converted, there were still groups of Celtics that did not accept Christianity, because even up until the full decline of the Celtic people, you saw their original religion. It was predominantly in the British Isles area, but it still survived. So they didn't really fully wipe out or conquer the Celtic beliefs, but they did have a strong hand in doing that. But the path they followed for the Celts was kind of hand in hand with their decline. As Christianity grew more powerful in Rome, and the Romans kind of conquered and attacked Celts, that kind of led to their conversion of those people that were conquered. And with the Germanic people, they also put pressure on the Celts, so that kind of followed with the Christianity's eventually converting the Germanic people. So that's it. I'll have more about the Catholics people, try to learn more about their rituals in a later video. I hope you enjoyed hearing this little part about history and seeing how Christianity moved through time to change the groups that were once existing. So I've been Richard. Have a good day.